welcome you to WPC. I'm the Partner Profitability Lead for the Worldwide Partner Group. As a part of my role, I get to talk to partners every day about how they can build a more successful and profitable cloud business. I've been at Microsoft about 8 years. I spent the first 5 years working with US partners, ISVs in particular, and the last 3 years working with cloud partners from around the world of all business types as a part of the Worldwide Partner Group. As I was thinking about and preparing for this presentation today, I thought a lot about what I want you to feel and do when you leave WPC and go back to your business. And the following picture came to mind. This is a picture of my son, Zach, and his Little League baseball team. They were the City of Redmond champions this last season. My son, Zach, was really the leader of the team. He started pitching this year, and if any of you have kids who have spent time in Little League, the year they transition from coach pitch to kid pitch is a pretty tough transition. And most of the kids have a really tough time getting the ball over the plate. It's all over the place. It's over here and over there. My son, Zach, pretty good at getting it over the plate. In fact, he struck out 122 batters in 51 innings over the course of the season, and he had a .736 batting average. That's pretty impressive. But the reason I'm most proud of my son, Zach, is because he's positive. He's always encouraging of his team, even when they're down. In my interactions with partners over the years, especially the business leaders of these partners, I'm often reminded that it's personal. You're the leader. Your team is looking to you to carry you through the business transformation to the cloud. And transformation is really hard. It takes a long time. There's a lot of challenges that come up. Your team is looking to you to get them through to the other side, to profitability. Over the course of the rest of the day and into the rest of WPC, we've put together a lineup of sessions with the goal of really helping you understand how you can achieve more and build a more profitable business in the cloud. We've got a great lineup of speakers, from Darren Bibby from IDC to Martin Gregory, who's going to talk to you about project and managed services, to Harold Horgan, who's an expert on the ISV space. We also have a great panel of partners. Now, I have invited a couple of partners today to participate in this session. We're having a lot of fun backstage, in case you're paying attention to Twitter. But we're having a good time just because they have great stories to tell, and we're excited to have them with us today. So I want you to think really hard over the course of the next few days about what you're going to do differently in your business when you go back to your offices. I'd welcome you to tweet your aspiration to #MyCloudAspiration. You can mention WPC15, which is the official hashtag of this conference, and then you can reference Jen Seeger or Brent Combest. Brent is my manager. I'm not sure if he's out here in the room somewhere. I think he is. Brent and I have a healthy little competition going on to see who can build more followers here at WPC. So if you want to help me out, that'd be great. All right. So I want to kick off this session by talking a little bit about the opportunity in the cloud. IDC recently forecasted that the cloud market is going to reach $200 billion by 2018. That's pretty impressive. Well, as Microsoft partners, we want you to succeed, and we're here to back you up. We want a piece of it too, by the way. All right, so in my interactions with cloud partners, we have a lot of discussion about what are the ways that they build profitability into their business, and what are the things that they did differently than other partners in this space. Now, I think what I want to start off with is talking a little bit about the revenue streams. It's important to note that not all revenue streams in the cloud are created equally. There's really 4 predominant business models. The first is product. Partners in this space really have the greatest barrier. They're heavily reliant on channel incentives, which, as you know, can change over time as vendors change their priorities and their business direction. Partners who are focused on project services, a lot of our ecosystem is focused in this space, receive about a 35% gross margin on services. Now, this has been under pressure for some time, as the costs have been rising for benefits and salaries, and as new players have entered the market and created really a general kind of lack of differentiation. Customers have been unwilling to pay more. So really, this gross margins, we're actually seeing this start to decline a bit. The partners in our space who are having the most effective cloud strategy are really those who are focused on managed services and packaged IP. Partners who are driving managed services are seeing approximately a 45% gross margin on services, while those who are focused on IP are receiving upwards of 65%. Now, when I talk about IP, I want you to understand that this doesn't have to be a big monolithic ISV application. This can simply be a SharePoint application that a partner is building for a vertical, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged standalone application. Partners who are doing a great job in this space and are really seeing a lot of increased profitability and revenue growth. Last year, we partnered with IDC to do a study of the Successful Cloud Partners ebook. You guys may have seen, hopefully you have by now. And we saw that partners who have more than 50% of their revenue in the cloud are seeing 1.5 times the gross profit and 1.4 times the revenue growth of their peers. Additionally, it's important to understand that as partners start to build out these recurring revenue streams of managed services and IP, they'll also start to have stronger valuation multiples. In fact, we see 5 to 14x in EBITDA in terms of the valuation of those managed services and IP providers. That's pretty impressive as compared to the partners who are focused on more traditional businesses of product or project services, which are seeing 2 to 4x. Now, recently, I was really curious about, what is the state of evolution in our partner ecosystem? And so we conducted a survey of over 1,260 partners, and then we did 66 in-depth interviews with partners. And we asked questions about what they're offering to their customers, and we asked about the project services, managed services, and IP that they're wrapping around Microsoft Cloud Services. And then we asked about the revenue composition of those deals. Now, I was surprised by this metric. Nearly half of the survey respondents claimed that they are providing project services, managed services, and IP. And 50% of the revenue is generated from recurring streams. I don't know about you, but I was pretty surprised by these metrics. I thought, wow, our ecosystem is transforming very quickly. And so for those of you in the room who are thinking about your strategy, I'd love for you to just benchmark yourself against this and understand, are you moving fast enough? What do you need to do differently in your business? As I mentioned, a part of the survey was also to understand the project services, managed services, and IP that partners are wrapping around the top 20 scenarios across Office 365, CRM Online, Azure, Windows, and devices. And what we did is we collated all of this information, and we put it into a couple of slides for each scenario, which you see on the screen here. So this is an example for transform the data center. You see the customer needs, market opportunity, and the partner opportunity. And then on the second slide, we provide the list of the services partners are providing in each of these project services, managed services, and packaged IP buckets, as well as the average revenues partners are seeing from these services. This information was really, as a result, we created this information as a result of partner feedback that they really wanted to understand how they could actually build that more profitable business with Microsoft. What are those opportunities? So these scenario content is actually already available on MPN, and you can download it today. To complement this information, we also developed new cloud financial models. The example I'm showing on the screen is for Azure. We also have models for Office 365, CRM Online, and for a combination of Office 365, CRM Online, Azure, and then we have also included Windows and devices in that scenario. So a couple things I'll point out on the screen here. We have all of the numbers that are listed in red are variables that you can enter based on your own business that you have. And then as you adjust those numbers, on the right-hand side, you'll see the revenue composition and valuation impact of your business. Now, valuation is a really important topic that we're going to be talking a lot about this week. In fact, there's a session on Wednesday afternoon. You'll see on the little cards we gave you. That session is 2:30 Pacific, or 2:30 Eastern time. What time zone are we in here? And so you can take a look at that session, learn a lot more about that valuation topic. I know lots of our partners in the business are thinking about retiring at some point, getting a big boat, sailing off into the sunset. So this is a really important piece to be looking at. Okay, so there are 4 pillars of success that we've seen from these partners that we've worked with over the years. The first is creating scale. When I talk about creating scale, I'm really thinking about how a partner is really operating their business. And this starts off with marketing. Partners who are doing this effectively have marketing engines, and they are creating loads of new cloud customers. They are looking for opportunities to leverage digital marketing, social, Twitter, Facebook, all of those different aspects to bring in customers. And then once those customers have been brought in, they're passing them off to sales. Sales is then taking those leads, very rapidly working with the customers to close the deals, developing proven methodologies, overcoming objections. Once they get those deals closed, they pass them off to deployment and services teams. Those teams are operating like a factory. Think about an assembly line. Line up those services. How can you optimize everything at every single step of the way? Think about the staffing that you're deploying against those services. Do you have someone who's too expensive delivering the services? That's going to affect your profitability. The next area is around developing focus. When I talk about developing focus, there's a lot of different examples I could give you here, but I think the best one would be partners who are pursuing a vertical strategy. Partners who create a vertical strategy actually end up seeing that they're able to optimize all aspects of their business. So from a marketing perspective, they get the message down. They go to the right forums. They talk to the right people. From a sales perspective, they know how to overcome all the objections. They can move through that cycle more quickly. And then from a delivery perspective, they know what those customers are looking for. They have the right answers to those questions. They can deliver those services in a more efficient manner. The other great thing is that as you develop that differentiation and that focus in the vertical, you can really demand a higher price point from your customers because you've established yourself as an expert. The next focus area is around increasing value. Now, there's a lot of ways to do this, but one of the best ways is to think about how you can offer additional services to that customer to increase their average revenue per user. This could be something as simple as starting with Office 365, getting a foothold with a customer, and then looking for that next logical opportunity with the customer to go in with additional cloud services. Or on Office 365, you deploy the Exchange workload, you go back in with SharePoint Online, with Skype for Business. I wanted to say Link. So that's really important, is thinking about how you're going to hold these customers for a long time. How can you add a lot of value so they look to you as a trusted advisor? The final example here is creating stickiness. So the best way to create stickiness is to develop IP and deploy that to your customers. You want to make sure that your solution is a part of their daily life and work. One of the best examples I have for this is actually a Microsoft example, but I'll use it anyway. 8 years ago when I came to Microsoft, I had come from a business where they didn't let you use instant messaging. That was crazy. So when I came to Microsoft, this is a part of the culture. I mean, people are constantly IMing you and stuff comes from all over the place. But I loved it because I could reach my manager anywhere he was in the building or on a trip. And this has become a part of the way that I work. I can't imagine someone taking that away from me. It just wouldn't happen. You want to have an application that becomes a part of their daily life and work. So those are just a couple of examples of how you can create this optimal cloud strategy. Now, I want to bring out a panel of experts to talk about how they are looking at these 4 pillars. So I'd like to welcome to the stage, first off, Dan Bibby from IDC, Dan Scarfe, who is the founder of .NET, Ben Gower, who is the CEO of Perspicuity. All right. Thanks so much for participating in the panel. I'm really excited to have you guys up here. All right, so we're just going to get started by talking a little bit about your journey to the cloud. Everyone's journey is a little different, but we have some interesting perspectives to share here. So Dan, I'm going to start with you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. So my name is Dan Scarfe. I'm founder of a UK-based company called .NET Solutions. Our name is a bit of a clue in terms of where we started out. So we started in 2004, and we were very much focused around application development on the then new .NET framework. We grew the company very successfully. We came very early into Azure around 2007, as it was an application development platform originally. But one of the challenges with application development is, it's a very bespoke sales cycle. Every customer wants something different. So we took a decision to pivot our company. And we've now gone heavily into infrastructure and managed services. We still do our application development, but it's now one of our product lines, and infrastructure and managed services have now greatly overtaken that particular product line. We are currently focused around the upper corporate accounts and into EPG accounts, and we're having a lot of success in that market and outseating a number of the GSIs in a number of our companies at the moment.
Great, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, hi. My name is Ben Gower. I'm the CEO of Perspicuity. The clue is not in the title for that one, although I've got .NET Solutions. So, and we went to the cloud because we were very similar to Dan. We were in the bespoke market, so every sales cycle was different. We were in the SharePoint space. Every time we delivered something, it was different. Although we could have kind of methodology behind it, we found that it was incredibly difficult to grow. As a company, we were kind of just about breaking, some percentage growth each year, but we weren't having this big growth ramp that we were trying to achieve. So for us, our journey was all about how do we acquire net new customers for our platform where we had our expertise, which at that time was SharePoint. And how do we grow forward in a kind of metronomic fashion? So how do we keep growing all the time? So we were getting a little tired of boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust as we went through the cycle of winning great new customer and then trying to go and look for the new one. We wanted to get into a tick-tock, where every single day we're moving towards a net new customer. Right. And that kind of sums up our journey to the cloud, which is 5 years worth of work.
It's a lot of work on your part.
Yeah.
Good job. All right, Darren?
So yeah, I'm Darren Bibby with IDC, so I look after our channels and alliances practice. So I'm not a partner, but I study partners basically for a living, and my team does. So we take a look at large vendors and how Microsoft and others do their partner strategies and partner programs, but we're really trying to find out what makes the business partners tick. So a year ago, we embarked on some great work with Microsoft. We produced something called a Successful Cloud Partners ebook with a lot of great ideas. And I think through that process, I learned a lot about business partners who are making this journey to the cloud. And the one thing is just like what you guys said, no one journey is like the other. There's no prescription for doing this. There's no one formula or recipe. So my advice to business partners when you hear panels like this, and you're going to go to lots today and this week, is look for those 1 or 2 or 3 great ideas that'll apply to you, but realize that you're not all going to be like .NET, or you're not all going to be like Perspicuity. It's easy for me to say, right?
That's right.
By the way, one quick story on the knowing the name and knowing when you came from. One company I met a while ago was Kilobytes Consulting. And I thought that's neat, but it goes out of date sort of soon, right? Over time, but
absolutely. Great. Well, as I mentioned, we're really going to drill into each of those 4 key pillars of success. So the first question that I want to pose to the panel here is how they're creating scale in the business. Now, Dan and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and he surprised me with the answer to this question. So Dan, I'm going to go ahead and have you tell that story here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talk a lot about, business journeys, business growth. But, as owners, executive leaders in our business, I think we also need to think about, our own personal journey and where we want to take our lives, where we want to take our businesses. So as I mentioned a couple of years ago, we pivoted, and that was both a business pivot, but it was also a personal pivot for myself. You'll notice I'm no longer CEO, I'm now founder, and the reason that I'm now founder is because I took a decision to demote myself. And instead of myself trying to grow the business, we brought in a new CEO, and as part of that, we also brought in private equity backing. So when we did that, we were about a 15-person company, about $1.5 million run rate. In the last couple of years, we've seen exponential growth. So we're now a 55-person company, about $6.5 million revenue, and that's over the space of 2 years. I mean, it has been a quite astronomical growth. And that was because we took that decision that we want to change what the business was all about, and we wanted to move away from being a small niche consulting company into a much, much larger business. And we've got some, huge growth aspirations, even more going forward. So, highly encourage you to look at that and, look inward and say, am I the blocker inside my business? Are there new and different things that we could do if I empower other people inside my organization to either help me or, ultimately perhaps even to take over? So that was one of the ways that we increased scale. The other one is all around leveraging partnerships, leveraging channel. So we do an awful lot of work in the UK alongside LSPs, alongside telcos. Anyone that has access to a large addressable market is someone that we like to work very, very closely with. So I'll talk in a bit about how we've re-engineered our sales cycle, but leveraging those channels now is one of the huge funnels through which these opportunities come into our business.
And I believe another one of the way that you created scale was actually to do acquisition a bit.
Absolutely, yes. So as part of that pivot, we wanted to launch an Office 365 practice. There's the old adage of, you can either do this incrementally yourselves, or actually you can just acquire a business. And my colleague Pete is with me in the audience. So Pete ran a very successful Office 365 business, and we took the decision to acquire them. So we wanted to get to market a lot more quickly than we could do ourselves, and that was the route that we chose to do that. And it's worked out very, very well. 365 is now over 50% of our entire company revenue, and we didn't even have a practice 2 years ago.
Good choice, and Pete. All right, great. So Ben, how about you?
Well, I haven't taken voluntary demotion yet, but with a couple of my shareholders and execs in the audience, might be involuntary demotion shortly after this. But yeah, there were certainly periods on the journey where I could have been involuntarily demoted or kicked out as we took more and more, bigger steps towards getting successful. And believe me, not everything we did was successful by a long chalk. And to create scale for us, we had to think about how we were going to market, what we were doing, and the actual selling cycle itself. So for us, the way we were selling, a little like what Dan was saying, was each sales cycle was bespoke, each sales cycle was different. There was no strong process or structure. There wasn't even a sales methodology behind it. It was just I would describe it as kind of three nice guys with some stuff that we knew people wanted to buy, and if we would talk nicely to the customer, there's a good chance they'd buy it. That is not a scalable business, right? There is no way we could scale that. So we did a few things. One is we adopted a sales methodology very early on, which reduced our time spent discussing things with customers. Very quickly got to a point where we could qualify in, and we qualify customers very, very hard to find out whether they're actually going to buy what it is that we have to sell. We hired a completely different workforce, so we went out and hired some much younger people. In the UK, we have a thing called the apprenticeship scheme. We've become very successful at hiring apprentices.
How young are we talking here, Ben?
Youngish. So some of our youngest apprentices, one of them is here actually today in the audience. He's not 16 anymore, but when we hired him, he was 16 years old. We've just hired other 16-year-olds. That is legal in the UK, okay? I appreciate it's not legal in every market. So a couple of things, you do have to pay them. This is not a route for cheap labor, okay? Don't think of it as a route for cheap labor. It's a route to get you really, really good world-class resources, and you will pay them in due course. You will pay them just the same as you pay anyone else, but they'll be excellent at what they do. Okay. And you don't have to go through that painful transformation. Kind of one other point on scale really is around the tools that we use. So We were talking, but just behind the screens earlier on, about what IP we've created. We haven't actually created IP per se, but we've created process around tools. So some of the tools that we use are things like Skykick, and the IP, if you like, that we have is the process and the methodology for selling and deploying an Office 365 migration, SharePoint deployments, all of those kind of things.
That's great. Yeah, and if any of you guys want to hear actually from Charlie himself, he's here in the front row. He's our Office 365 rockstar seller. He's actually going to participate later today in the Winning Loads of New Cloud Customers session. There's a blog out on NPN. Charlie and I had a fun time building that out, talking about his story and how he's sold to over 1,500 cloud Office 365 customers himself. Pretty impressive. And Darren, actually, before I transition, I'm going to have Darren talk a little bit about how other ideas for partners who are creating scale.
Sure. That session later today is a lot about digital marketing, and you can hear from some great partners to find out how they scaled their business through marketing. 5 or 10 years ago, a typical IT solutions provider could kind of guide their customer through the education on a product or solution, and all that kind of stuff. The salesperson could guide them through, right? That was a liberty that they had that many years ago. And now, a recent survey that IDC had done, 65% of B2B buyers said they'd already figured out what they wanted before talking to sales. So you kind of figure, well, wait a second, I can't control that buying process anymore. They're smart. They've kind of figured out what they wanted. So my marketing better be the thing that they're online learning about, right? Let it be my content. Let it be my videos and all this, blogs and everything else versus someone else's. And if they like my content, then they're going to come to my salespeople already knowing what they want to buy. So marketing for sure is going to take much more of the sales cycle these days, and digital marketing is going to be a big part of that. So we'll talk about that later today. But yeah, marketing is going to be critical for scale.
Absolutely critical. In fact, I heard an interesting story yesterday from Kevin Conroy from Blue Rooster. It's a Seattle-based company, and they shared with me some insights on how they're leveraging just the information about who's coming to their website. He shared with me that as people come to the website, they know exactly where they're coming from, all kinds of demographics about them. And then they actually take that information, they can get down to who the company was that came to their website. They then scout out all the social sites to figure out who possibly could have come to the website using Twitter and LinkedIn and all kinds of social networks. And they can narrow it down very effectively to who came to their website. Within a few tries, they might, not hit the mark the first call that came, but then they find that person and they get very, very focused with their efforts. Very cool. I think digital marketing and the things that you can do now with some of the web-based tools, pretty impressive and definitely a best practice. So if you're not investing in marketing, you really need to be thinking about ramping this part of your business up. Okay, we'll transition to the next question. I want to talk a little bit about how you're developing focus and really differentiation in your market. So Dan, I'll start with you again on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are absolutely laser focused in what we do as an organization. There are 3 products that we sell. We sell Office 365, we sell Azure, and we sell EMS. That's it. That's all we do for our customers. And doing that means that we can get, super skilled on all of those technologies and see how all of those technologies come together and then deliver a really crisp message back to our customers. So that's really how we are focusing our organization. Differentiating yourself, is a challenge. There's hundreds of thousands of partners around the world, all doing this kind of thing. And the way that we differentiate ourselves is all about case studies. It's all about credibility. It's all about demonstrating competence in what we're doing. So, a really important metric for our organization is all about new logos, and especially new logos with new technologies. So, we'll always be there at that leading and bleeding edge. Whenever a new product comes out, we want to be the first person in our sub that gets the flagship case study using that technology. Very often we'll do those projects for free, because we want to be able to have that, that case study to talk about. And, when Microsoft sellers are out talking to customers, they want case studies as well. And if they reference a customer that you've done, again, you're getting huge amounts of free sales and marketing as part of that. So, those two things. And then the final thing that we do, is all around people. So, we are a people business. We sell people's time. Even with our managed services business, it's still people ultimately that are running all of this. And we always go for the most talented and frankly the most expensive people we can find in market. We've all been there, you're interviewing people, you've got a whole range of people that have come through, one might want $80,000, one might want $100,000, and you go, yeah, we'll probably get away with the $80,000 guy. Don't, spend the extra, because frankly I see, if you're spending $80,000 on an average guy, then you might as well just throw that away, whereas actually for an extra $20,000 you can get a superstar. That superstar is going to be the guy that's in front of your customers. He is or she is going to be the person that's actually selling your business. So just don't scrimp on people. Get those rock stars.
I think that's really good advice, because I think sometimes when partners are thinking about how to build this profitable business, they do look to scrimp and save and in the people costs. And I think having quality people and making sure the right people are doing the right jobs, that's really the key strategy that I think works well.
And also from our managed services side as well, when we made that decision to invest, we invested heavily. Lots of people talk about managed services. Oh yeah, we'll just do managed services. And when the guys are free, then they can look after our customers. Yeah. Again, we found that doesn't really work. When we took the investment, we made a specific decision that we wanted to invest heavily in managed services, building out a support desk. That's not a cheap thing to do, especially when you're getting into 24/7 support. But if you're serious about doing this, make the investment and do it properly.
That's great. Okay, Ben, how about you?
I think for us, similar theme, so very focused on what we do. We do Office 365 specifically around the mail migration and SharePoint workloads. Those are the two things that we do. And for us, we do it, I think one of the key things is that we are not threatening to the existing IT department. We are not threatening to the incumbent partner that may be doing a whole load of other workloads. Maybe they're doing CRM, maybe they're doing managed services, all of those kind of things. We do what we do, and we do it really, really well. We're also very focused on which customer segments that we're going to work on. So we're going to work on SMB all the way through to corporate accounts, up to the kind of mid-market corporate accounts. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, as you get into EPG, it's just not our bag. We're not doing it. We don't get involved. And as soon as you see those kind of looming in, the sales guys' eyes are all lighting up. Everyone wants to go for those mega accounts, but actually we're not going to do them. We've learned our lesson the hard way that that's not the way to grow the business and be profitable in everything that we do. So that's kind of a differentiator. And when I say the piece about non-threatening is because we only do that piece, then IT departments are much more comfortable in having a conversation with you.
Yeah,
we're not trying to take over their world. We're not trying to make their exchange guys redundant. We're not trying to do this, that, and the other. We're very kind of non-threatening to them as our business partner, if you like. So from that perspective, that's one differentiation. I think the other thing is we do an awful lot of work through partners. So again, we're looking to work. The new world. We're at Partner Conference, but the new world is very much through partner and partnering together to get a better end result for your customer or for your partner's customer. Yep.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think the partners, one of the biggest pitfalls of partners is when they try to stretch themselves too far. Exactly. Say we're going to be all things to all people.
Exactly.
That strategy doesn't work well.
You've got to be huge to pull that strategy off.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so Darren, what other topics? I know in the Successful Cloud Partners ebook we had some good insights on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. This was important. Although I've just been doing some math in my head. I know you're talking about technical people paying them $100,000. How many 16-year-olds could you buy with $100,000? Just curious.
Well, roughly.
You don't have the answer.
No, you're talking about 15 to 20 grand for the first year, but then you have the training.
Yeah, the training. And I know we're comparing apples to oranges because sales and tech people and that, but yeah. Bit of a mixture, as we'll perhaps learn from you. But yeah, absolutely. Focus and differentiation. 5 or 10 years ago, again, sort of going back to some of these stories, an IT VAR who was focused on Raleigh, North Carolina, probably could be all things to all people. We'll be, your local provider, and we're going to kind of do all these things for you. Microsoft plus Symantec plus Oracle plus whoever, right? Not anymore, right? For a customer now can go to the web, go to marketplaces, go to social media, and find the best partner for a specific area that they want to focus on. And if that's the case, it's just too hard to be all things to all people for a kind of little local geography. So we're seeing companies differentiate in all sorts of ways. We heard a few examples here. More and more, we're going to see vertical solution providers who focus on that piece. We're going to see people who just understand a business process really, really well, HR. For instance, we're going to see people who focus on price, focus on deep expertise. We're going to get more and more specialized, and the one little story, if I may tell, is we're going to see this more and more in our world of solution providers, but we're seeing it in other areas too. So if you know what Match.com is and dating sites, you wouldn't believe the micro specificity now of some of these sites. Has anybody heard of FarmersOnly.com? It's a dating website for rural people. See one hand there, probably from Nebraska. It's a dating website for rural people, and their tagline is, "City folks just don't get it." So this is the kind of level of specificity we're going to start getting in our world, in our kind of collective world of the website companies and IT solution providers. So don't be surprised if you start seeing companies you're competing with soon who are really, really narrowly focused and just get one business process really, really well, or one industry really, really well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, good. Well, we're going to transition to the next question. So I want to talk a little bit about how you're increasing value and driving adoption, creating stickiness with customers. Obviously, Microsoft is extremely focused now on how we can drive adoption of our cloud services. We don't want to just sell to the customers and have them have these products sitting on the shelf. We want them to use those services. And like the example I gave earlier with Link and now Skype for Business, I use it every day. I use it constantly to interact with people. It's really important that partners are thinking about how they can build IP and other things to make their services a part of the daily life and work of their customers. So I'd love to hear. We'll start with Ben, maybe, or actually, I'm going to start with Darren. You on this one, because we've just done some research on this, and we're going to talk about what the insights were.
Sure. So just overall, we've moved from this world of large software license deals, selling hardware, and all of the money for those deals you get at the point of transaction, right? That's just the way the accounting rules work. You get to, there's no value has been seen from the hardware or software yet from the customer, and yet you get to recognize all that money. In the new world of consumption economics or recurring revenue or cloud or managed services, it's actually really $0 at the point of transaction. You're not allowed to recognize any revenue on day one. You have to provide the service. And at the end of 1 month's service, you can be paid for or recognize 1 month's worth of revenue. It's a very, very different model. So the folks who are really, really good at sell and go to the next, fire and forget, move on, they may be some of the worst resources at the new world of keeping customers for life. So we're seeing companies come up with, our solution providers come up with ways of keeping their customers for a long time. You mentioned this 24/7 support. This is a big change to a lot of project services companies. They don't have to maybe come up with a call center or an 800 number, and there's distributors and others who can help with that. But they're coming up with customers for life organizations. They're coming up with customer success managers, individuals who are going to make sure that the customers are using the software, adoption consultants, and the like. So, and I know we've heard, I'm sure maybe you guys have some more stories on this, but it's a different world. If you want to maintain profitability, you have to keep customers for a long time, because that's when the money comes. But year 3, year 5 of these models, they are incredibly profitable years for those customers that you got in year 1.
Absolutely. I know a really good best practice I heard from a US partner, Eastridge. They shared with me that what they actually do is they take all of their customers, they put them into CRM Online, and they closely track what SKUs that those customers have purchased. And then as new services come out, so for example, he gave me the example of Skype for Business. When Skype for Business came out, OneDrive for Business. When OneDrive for Business came out, what they did is they went out to all of their existing customers who were currently licensed for it and said, hey, you now have this new service. let's talk about how you can leverage this best in your business. That then generates incremental project services revenue for their business. So I think that was really smart, is using technology to carefully track what the customers have, making sure that when Microsoft launches new services, that you're the one to go to that customer to share that information with them. That makes the customer feel like you're really after their best interests.
One story from a partner who was here last year doing a speech on profitability, Vertiva. They made this this transition from, they have a great chart, project services in 2009 and managed services, and over the years it's swapped, right? They became much more into managed services. But they found that for every one of their managed services customers, they had about 60 cents of project services that came up out of the dollar of managed services. So they were the incumbent. They get to keep going back, show them the value, remind them of the value, and they got all sorts of more business from that.
Yep. Great story. All right, so Ben, let's hear from you on this topic.
Well, I think we're working with an awful lot of partners at the moment and helping them to build their strategies. And one of the things that we're recommending they do, and they're getting a lot of success from, is trying to get their head around looking at this as a 3 and a 5 year program from a customer perspective. If you just start looking at it just as the transaction, it makes no sense. It doesn't, there isn't that great big bundle of stuff up front where you're going to take a huge margin and, like Darren said, recognize it on the P&L straight away. Right. You have to take a 3 and 5 year view. And if that is the case, you have to assume that in the 3 to 5 years, the majority of your customer base is actually going to start adopting cloud at some point. But you then have to map out what they're going to do next. So the obvious first step is mail. That's where they go first. But what are they going to do after that? Are we going to have to do something around archiving? Are we going to look at devices? Are we going to look at managed services? What are the complementary products that fit around that? How does SharePoint fit into that 3 and 5 year view? And once you've built that plan out, it's relatively straightforward to give that plan to your account manager and say, right, this is what we're comping you on. This is what we're paying you on. Over the next 3 years, this is how you will be paid on successfully delivering that program into those customers.
What about with customers? Do you share those plans with customers?
Absolutely. The more successful partners that are doing that are actively building those plans together with their customers, so that what you want is when the customer feels a bit of pain, the partner's feeling a bit of pain too, and you're working together to resolve that. But equally, you have a joint business plan which says, look, this is what we're doing, and we're having QBRs to make sure that we're on track. The account managers are comped in the right way.
Right, that's a critical element.
And if you don't change your comp, the compensation plan, it won't work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think another best practice I've ever with partners is just not trying to do too much up front, but taking it in that stepped approach, like you said, because trying to do too much up front, then it elongates the sales cycle, creates more confusion with the customer, so you kind of have to take that step-by-step approach.
That's exactly right.
Absolutely. Okay, so Dan, how about you?
So I would absolutely echo that as well. We talk about taking customers on a journey. And that typically is a 3 to 5 year journey. One of the advantages, selling the complete range of Microsoft Cloud solutions as we do is, there's multiple ways into a customer. It might start with Office 365, it might start with Azure, it might start with EMS, mobile device management. There'll be, lots of funnels that these customers come into. But then once they're into that funnel, we then take them on that journey and, help cross-sell all of the different Microsoft Cloud services which are available to you. The other thing that we do is we've radically changed the way that we do our sales. So, we used to employ shiny suited sellers. Sorry, Darren, your suit's very nice. But we've completely moved away from that. So now most of the sales that we do is actually done within our practices, so within our delivery function, and pre-sales now exist within there. As Darren said, customers don't really appreciate sellers anymore. They don't appreciate being educated on what these products do. What they really want to see is how these products work in action. So our pre-sales team will actually go in there and actually, take the customer on that journey, be it whiteboarding sessions, be it envisioning sessions, whatever you want to call it. They're being sold to, but they don't necessarily realize that they're being sold to. And then what we've done is we've then made another change beyond that, in that we've taken our ex-head of sales and marketing and we've actually made him head of delivery, effectively. Because what we want to do is to try and percolate that sales message down throughout our delivery organization. when you've got consultants or architects on site at a customer doing a project, you've got to think of them as sellers. We had a tech check earlier, and you were talking about, having a hall pass. When you're in doing delivery or doing managed services, you're in with the people who are going to be making those decisions. And, you have a whiteboard session to discuss some new bit of technology that's coming up. You're now
sales.
selling to those customers, but the customers don't necessarily realize it. So,
I think it feels very consultative when they're
very,
in that,
very consultative selling.
approach.
But, think of your delivery organization as a sales organization. And when they've come to the end of the first project, make sure that they're there looking for the next project and the next technology we can deploy, and how we can upsell and deliver more value to those customers.
Sorry, do you comp those delivery people if they get new deals or on new deals, or is there some kind of compensation specifically that they're looking for it?
So they're comped on the gross margin effectively that their practice delivers. Okay. So if they're in there and they're finding new opportunities, they're not going to be comped on the upfront sale, but they will be comped on the
practice as a whole. Got it.
Which is then going to have more business and be more profitable.
Yeah, that's motivating. Yep.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think in some of the research that we've done, we're really seeing that that partners are starting to comp various different parts of the organization, even marketing. We talked about customer success managers. Some partners are actually deploying these resources to really be the expert on looking at that customer end-to-end journey, thinking about how they can actually be spotting for those specific opportunities, analyzing usage patterns within customers. I think that's a big one. I know very soon we're going to be sharing data with partners around the active usage of their customers, if they're a partner of record. I would encourage partners in the room to really take a look at that data and see what are your customers using? What are they not using? Let's say they're really using Exchange Online effectively, but then you take a look at the SharePoint Online workload, they're not using it all. Well, that's a fantastic opportunity to go back into the customer and say, hey, we want to make sure you're getting the best use out of this solution that you're paying for.
Great.
That will then generate project services revenue.
Sorry, the great story heard from New Signature is that they found that they'd go in and do a project with their customer. They'd go back a while later and say, how's it going? And say, oh yeah, good. We love the product. And then they find out ages later that they actually haven't been using it very much. Right. There's actually this little phenomenon that the customer is almost embarrassed to tell you they haven't been using it. They almost would say, yeah, we're using it. Don't get upset at us. Okay, I'm paying you money, but I'm going to get up. I'm going to be afraid of you. It's kind of like when you go to your dentist and they say, have you flossed? And you're like, sure, floss every chance I get. No. So there's almost this stigma or something. They're afraid to tell you as a solution provider they haven't been using it. So yeah, check out this data. I know it's now available. We're doing a session on Tuesday talking about active usage. That data is going to be unbelievable, I think, for your businesses.
Yeah, it's going to unlock a lot of opportunities, I think. Okay, so we have a unique opportunity here with Darren. He studies really this industry left to right. So I asked Darren if he could sort of prepare his thoughts on what the Microsoft partner of the future looks like. I mean, we know that this space is evolving rapidly. So Darren, I'd love to have you share your thoughts now on this topic.
Thank you. Yeah, so we get to talk to lots of partners throughout a year, and this is sort of a summary of what we've been putting together over the years on quite a few different topics. So I'm going to go through 9 topics fairly quickly here, and just kind of describe in almost a black and white view as an analyst where, the shades of gray are always there, but I'm going to kind of give you the black and white of it here. The partner of the past focused on what IDC would call the second platform. Think client, server, LAN, internet type applications, typically what we might call on-premise or traditional IT right now. The third platform is really cloud, analytics and big data, mobility, and social. Right? These are the mega trends that Microsoft's been talking about, and really every other large IT vendor out there. Some stats on this: the third platform will grow over the next 5 years, 13% compound annual growth rate. Okay, 13% versus 0 on the second platform. There will be no growth. It's still, second platform is still a bigger part of the industry, but within a few years, the third platform will be about 40% of our revenue by 2020. But it's where all the growth is. And, if you're going to stay in the second platform, any growth you get will have to come off of someone who's sitting beside you, basically, off another solution provider. This idea of focus, we talked about it here today, focus and differentiation. Kind of gone are the days where you could be that local provider doing all things for all people. It really is going to have to become, you're going to have to become more and more specialized, and there's a lot of different ways to do that, as we said. It's been said to me that this next one, on the focus on the customer, may be the biggest transition that you might have to go through, even bigger than this idea of going to cloud and consumption economics and recurring revenue. But that's, IT people, IT-focused solution providers, are used to going to IT departments and speaking the language of IT and speeds and feeds and all this kind of stuff. The line of business buyer is becoming a huge influencer in technology investments. So our prediction is that by 2016, just within the next year and a half, by the end of 2016, 80% of IT investments will be influenced by line of business buyers. And about half of those will be made by the line of business buyer. So this is a very big deal. So if you not kind of on the path to talking to that constituent at your client, if you can't really speak to the business buyer's language, if you don't know the metrics of that business, definitely start on that one. Who in your business can start to have those conversations? That's a big one. But don't forget about IT. When I first made this slide a year and a half ago, I said, from IT buyer to business buyer. It's not. I mean, there's so much of, you have to keep the lights on, you have to keep things going. If there's any outage at all, that's the end of your relationship with that customer, if it's your fault. The sales motion, as we said before, it has to go from the deal to the relationship. Everything we've done in our industry for years now has been about getting to that point of transaction, taking the money and going and finding the next customer. You're only going to be profitable if over time you can keep these customers. So the way you set up sales and account management and customers for life organization, whatever it's called, is going to have to be about the relationship and keeping these guys going for the long term. And that means your time horizon is probably going to have to shift. Ben very aptly put it that you're going to have to think 3 to 5 years out. There's a trough that can happen with your revenue as you go from one model to the next, as you go from upfront project services, selling big hardware, software licenses to cloud and managed services. There can be a trough as you got all the money up front, and now we're getting 5 users, 10 users, 100 users. But that builds up over time, and it's a beautiful model in year 3 and 5. Some of the profitability calculations I've heard from partners on how cheap it is to service that customer in year 5 of a deal, right? It's just hugely profitable, but you have to get there.
That's right. And actually on that one really quickly, in the calculator that I talked about, the financial model I talked about earlier, we actually have a cash flow tab. So as you add the assumptions about your number of customer adds, your costs, things of that nature, it's going to actually show you what your cash flow is going to look like over the course of the next 4 years. So that's something I encourage you guys to take a look at.
Yeah, no, very good. Anything you can do to sort of model that out. And I know it's not going to be easy. I think it's going to put a lot of people out of business in the sense that I don't want to go through this transition, or I don't want to do it, or it could put them out of business because they're not keeping up. Just know that many of your competitors have this long-term view. Many vendors have this long-term view. And by the way, you're kind of trading off short-term gains and wins with revenue with long-term, the valuation of your company. I know there's a few sessions on it here, and we've got some slides from IDC on this, but your valuation is going down basically every day you stay as a traditional IT VAR. And some of the only ways it'll go up is if you have recurring revenue in your business, you're on the latest technologies like cloud and some of the third platform things, and you start bringing in more and more intellectual property into your business, right? So long-term is the answer. Marketing, you're going to hear it many times probably this week, but for a lot of partners, the past is no marketing and the future is some marketing, but hopefully for a lot of you, this is going from marketing and traditional marketing to digital marketing. We're hearing great stories from partners who have taken this to heart. Content is king, context is God, I've heard people say. But developing content, putting it out on blogs, putting it out in videos, being a thought leader in an area, and then moving on to things like Pinpoint actually does work for a lot of partners, but you have to invest in it. You really have to invest time in it. Search engine optimization, AdWords, like these are all of the things that a partner of the future really has to be doing on the digital marketing side. The beautiful thing of digital marketing, just like your example with Eastridge, was it, or Blue Rooster? Eastridge. You can measure it, right? That's the beautiful thing about digital marketing. For the most part, you can measure it. Activities. This is kind of borrowed from what you talked about, I think at the very beginning. You have different kind of streams. Not every IT dollar of revenue is the same. We're going to see people go from reselling products to doing some kind of services. We're going to see people, once they get to services, moving to managed services. And we're going to see people doing any kind of services to moving up to creating IP, right? And each level you go, I think you started even mentioning some of the percentages you can get, but if you can get up to creating IP, it's not easy, it's not hard. I know we talked to these guys about it. They're creating different types of IP in their business. Doesn't have to be an end product, but you can start to get up to some fairly healthy gross margins, nice profitability. Your competition is going to change. Your competition, I saw a quote at a conference I was at lately. It said, how am I supposed to compete when I don't even know who my competitors are anymore? This is going to happen more and more. You're going to start seeing born in the cloud partners. That's actually becoming a somewhat traditional competitor these days, but they are working off of a different economic premise than most traditional IT companies, right? So you're going to start seeing those guys come up, and they don't mind taking the few dollars per user per month because that's the way they've set up their business. You're going to start seeing a lot of your customers creating applications and then going out and selling those to others in that industry. That's happened more and more. We're seeing that happen. You're going to see a lot of business consultancies. Think about like HR consulting or other types of business consulting who need marketing agencies is a good one too. But they understand this one area of business very, very well. And if it's not, if they weren't using today's technology, which they are, they'd be using a spreadsheet, or they'd be using paper and pencil and crayons or whatever it is. They are going to get that marketing or HR or business outcome to their customer. These days, they're going to start using SaaS offerings and other types of things. So you can either partner with those guys or start competing with them. But you're going to see the actual competitors that you thought were your competitors are definitely changing over time. And a big one you'll hear from Microsoft, and you'll hear from us too, is this idea of alliances, of partnering, right? Partner-partner collaboration. In the past, a lot of companies, we talked about that local IT provider in Raleigh, North Carolina. We do it ourselves. You know, if it's not invented here, it's not good enough. But we're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing this is a much better environment in today's world that you have to have good alliances. There's actually an IBM executive study a while back in the last year, and they looked at leading digital companies just doing a good job out there in digital transformation. These are customer companies. And one of the traits that all of them were good at was core competency was partnering, was alliances, was being able to say, I do this one thing really well, and I partner for the rest. Right. So it's a little bit of an overview, and thank you for all the photos. I thought that was great. When the last one went up, all the cameras went up. It's always a compliment when you're.
Our slides will be shared on
we could have told them that earlier.
Site, yeah.
There you go.
But if you want to tweet those photos, you're welcome to do so. We enjoy that kind of fun. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. I think you've provided a lot of good information and food for thought for our group. So I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of resources. On the slide here, and this is on the back of the cards that you all received when you came in the room, is a list of the top 5 resources we have available for partners. You can take advantage of our Partner Profitability Challenge, which is a training resource for you to help understand how you can build a more profitable business. In there, you'll find all kinds of information about business model, sales, marketing, support, all aspects of a business. The second is the landing page on MPN. We talked about the IDC Successful Cloud Partners ebook. It's actually out there on that page right now. You'll also find links to our blog. Myself and my manager, Brent, who's here, he and I both do blogs on a very regular basis, and we just like to share insights. We also like to share stories of partners. So if you have a really great story, you think, hey, I should be up there on the panel, please reach out to me. You can reach out via email. If you're not on Twitter, that's totally fine. My email is jseeger@microsoft.com, also on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear stories from you. And then all of the profitability scenario and financial models that I talked about are available on the profitability scenarios link on the screen. Again, you'll find those materials as well as the research that we actually did. There's an overview of the findings of the study, so I think you'll find that interesting. Of course, we have Cloud SureStep, which provides a ton of resources across sales and marketing and all aspects of the business to help you as you transform. And then the last piece is the marketing best practices. Darren actually participated or did a bunch of research with the marketing team at WPG around how you can really optimize your business and the marketing that you do. So a lot of those insights around digital transformation and digital marketing, SEO, all those kinds of things, that's available on the site. You can kind of go in there and answer a few questions and really get some good insights on how you can take things to the next level. Okay, so this was our first session in our track today. We have actually 4 more sessions. So you have the option in the next hour to go to the Project and Managed Services Deep Dive with Martin Gregory, or you can go to our IP session, which is with Harold Horgan. So just think a little bit about, you might want to divide and conquer, maybe come to one today, go to the other one on Tuesday afternoon, but we'll be deep diving into those topics. And then the third hour, we're going to talk about financial services or the financial model. So some of the financial modeling things that I talked about at a very high level today, we'll actually go deep into that in that session. And then the last session is the winning loads of new cloud customers. And you'll see Darren up there again with the panel. You've got Charlie. We've got some other partners there to share their insights. So thank you so much for joining us in this session. And I really hope that you've learned a few things. And I would welcome you once again to share what you're going to do differently in your business with #MyCloudAspiration. And let's have a little fun out there interacting throughout the conference. So thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to the rest of the week with you. Thank you.